Okay, commission meeting back in session, 1:30, Lower Deep Creek Drainage District.
Yes, sir. Tom Budowitz, representing the district. Was hoping Corey would be here because I had originally initiated this.
Yeah, I just checked, his door was right on here, so.
I'm gonna hand you a handwritten sheet that I think was prepared, if I understand it correctly, by John Walsh in combination with Doug. John is unable to be here today, but he did quite a bit of work, he and Bill have done quite a bit of work in trying to figure out exactly what happened. And I don't know whether, I suppose I ought to start somewhat at the beginning and kind of fill you in on how and why we're here. The Lower Deep Creek Drainage District was created back in, 48 or 49 by a court order. And a drainage district is a really unusual type of entity. But the purpose of it was because of the flooding from the irrigation practices, flood irrigation practices around this part of the county, particularly to the south and east of town. And there's a ditch was constructed around the inside of the irrigation canal. Primarily, as I understand it, to prevent floodwater from getting too far away from where it ought to be. There were limited, the original members of the district were the people whose property was directly affected by it. And so it stretched around from Hans through Bruce's and then around over to Jack Farm Road and actually ends up going all the way across over to the sawmill. So things were fine for the first few years. It was active when they were, of course, attempting to figure out, trying to figure out how to solve the problem. We constructed the ditch, did some maintenance on the ditch, and all the sort of things that you would normally expect to be done. In connection with that, and pursuant to statute, there was an assessment that was established by the court. I couldn't tell you exactly how much the assessment was, but it wasn't a great deal of money. But it was collected over a period of years. Jumping ahead, and I'll go back to some of the important timeframes, but jumping ahead to now, the Lower Deep Creek Drainage District, and I can't say that 3 times fast, but I can't even say it 1 time fast. But the district was essentially inactive for a number of years. And we're frankly not exactly sure when it was active and when it wasn't active, but we know that it hasn't been active for the last 25 or 30 years. But it's become apparent that it needs to be reactivated because the ditch has it has silted to the point where it's completely useless. And so it is going to require quite a good deal of maintenance. It was last year, the drainage district was reactivated by petition to the court. And I will tell you that virtually everything that's done by the district has to be done with the sanction of the district court. And so they went back to the district court, were authorized to be reactivated. There were new commissioners that were appointed. Chuck and Bill were 2 of the commissioners. Andy Bruce. Most of the activity that they've conducted so far since roughly a year ago is in trying to find what money was available. They've done some grant applications. They did get, was it $10,000, $11,000, something for some initial funding to get started. They've commissioned estimates from engineers to see how much the actual construction costs are going to be, maintenance costs and that sort of thing. It's going to be quite a bit of money. And they're continuing to apply for grant money to do that. The primary reason we're here now is we're trying to figure out what happened to the assessments that should have been, as far as we can tell, should have been continuously made since the original assessments were ordered back in the late 40s, early 50s. The sheet that I've given you is the only record, and that's a handwritten sheet prepared by John Walsh, based on information he and Doug were able to put together from very poor records in the clerk and recorder and treasurer's office. And so, as you can see, the last record of any money in the fund was in July of 1978, when there was $52 left over after there was a $400 bill paid. But you can see from 72 to 78, the number fluctuates. And because the number would increase and then decrease when there were payments made, you can see, for example, May 31 of 1973, it received $3,000, which brought the balance up to $3,300. And then there was about $24.49 that was paid out in July of 73. We have no idea where that $3,000 came from, but there's no, I mean, it's not an income producing district, so the only way that it would ever get any money would be from assessments. So we can only assume that that was a payment on an assessment, but we don't know that. We don't even have, we can't figure out from the county records now, we don't even know what these payments were for. Other than to show, obviously there were payments, but we don't know what they were for. So part of what we did with the district court the last time, we talked to Judge Sherlock the last time we had a hearing. Well, actually, I guess it was the time before that. It was back last fall. The order officially reinstating and confirming what the commission or what the district was doing required the county to cooperate in going back and trying to reconcile the books, so to speak, to determine where the money has gone, when these assessments were made, if they were made, how they were made, and where the money went. Part of the problem is that, of course, now we assume that assessments like this should go into a designated fund. That wasn't always the case back in older times in the county, as you, I'm sure, have discovered in your terms as commissioners, that the records aren't as good from 30, 40 years ago as they should have been, certainly not as good as they are today. And so what we're looking for primarily at this point, we don't know whether we're entitled to any money or not, because we don't know what money was collected. And I'm not sure how to go about finding out, other than the fact that we're an outside entity. You're the ones that have the records, you're the ones that have the books. So we're asking you to figure out what your books show. Want to add anything, Bill?
Just that the initial, I'm Bill Duty, by the way, no. But the initial assessment was $600 a year. That was established back in 1950. We went to the clerk court and went through had Val go through the old files. There, to get rid of that assessment, had to be a judge had to rescind it. There's no order that a judge ever rescinded that money. I know when John and Doug went down in the basement, they would find records that would be handwritten in pencil, more so on county commissioner notes, in the old county commissioner notes, versus there was no line item. Sort of looks like, and to go back with what Tom said, with that, there were 5 ranches back then when this district was formed. And, you know, at $600, it was a pretty insignificant amount that probably went into the general fund. It's the only thing we can figure out, or that's what we're sort of speculating anyway. But on this, we can't, on what John found, it's just like this $3,000, okay? Where'd it come from? We don't know.
Well, and that's the significance of this, is that it simply shows that there's apparently was still money, but that there was no line item. And I'm not sure exactly where these figures were found, or where these numbers were found. Maybe Doug can elaborate on that, but there's never been, apparently, there's never been a line item for this budget, or for the assessment, or for the fund itself. And I don't know how you go about trying to reconstruct it now, but of course, for a number of years, for roughly 30 years, nobody cared, because the district was inactive. There wasn't anyone had identified a need to go back and rework the ditch. But it's obvious that that needs to be done now, and so that's why we're here. We don't know any more about this than you do at this point.
Doug, have you found out any more on this?
I did a little more digging on it. And, you know, I don't know, like you guys, I don't know where the $3,000 came from, as I could guess, but your guess is as good as mine. Normally, the way taxes work with the county is, in order for something to be assessed, or for a mill to appear on the tax bill, whatever entity it is that needs the money, whether it's Lower Deep Creek Drainage Ditch, or Toston Fire, or Soil Conservation, whoever it is, will turn in a budget to the county at budget time each year and say, this is the amount of money we expect that we'll need this year. And that amount of mills is billed for that entity. Since I've been here, and I've only been here 12 years, but I've never seen anything just be given to the general fund. It just doesn't happen. If something comes in and it's designated Lower Deep Creek Drainage, it goes to Lower Deep Creek Drainage. There is a line item for it. I've never seen it work any other way. The only thing I can say is I did go back. We did find the amounts that we found that were on the report were actually from the treasurer's monthly reports. The treasurer did a monthly report to the commissioners and turned it in, and that's where those amounts came from. I did find some monthly reports that went into the 80s, and from 1979, I believe it was, the amount that was in that fund dropped to, I think it was $121 and 2 cents, somewhere in there.
120, yeah, 121, 2 cents.
Yeah, 121.02. I went as far as, I think the last report I pulled was July of 1989. So, and the amount in the Lower Deep Creek Drainage Ditch is still $121.02.
When did the first line items appear? Can you figure that out? When did your records first show a line item for that fund?
All I'm going by is the cash reports and the treasurer's reports. It's not really a detailed line item of what was billed for each
How
tax
far
year.
back does that go?
Pardon me?
How far back does that go?
Our records down there go back to the,
No, but how far back does it go that you're showing a balance for this district, for the district's funds?
when John and I went down and first started looking at them, I think we started, and Bill and I went down and took a look there for a little while. I think we started back in the 50s when the ditch was first started, just to see if we could find where it was on the bills.
Well, where are you finding, during what years are you finding a record of a fund? This goes to 1972 is all.
Right.
So do you have records of a balance in that fund prior to 1972?
Just on the treasurer's cash reports, they go back to the.
Do you have a cash report for every year during that period of time?
Right, yeah, most of the treasurers did their reports monthly.
So are you showing the assessments?
No, that's just a cash report that the treasurer made for the commissioners.
So you've got an assessment that was ordered by the court, but no record of any of the money being collected. in the
Right,
county.
the assessment order to the court, if I'm reading this right, it says this is a letter that, December 31st, 2014, that you sent to Cory. It said that the probable cost of keeping such a drainage ditch in repair would be $600 annually.
Right.
Right, so that's so, you know, the way I would read that probable cost, if they don't need the money, they wouldn't request it. We've had several, Three Forks Mosquito 2 years ago had an excess amount of funds and called us up and said, can we mill half of what we need because we don't need this much and we don't want to charge the taxpayers an over
But you don't have any.
taxes. So
you don't-
normally, when the budgets are done, the Lower Deep Creek Drainage Committee should have gotten with the commissioners and told them what they needed for the year. That's normally how it would be done.
Well, but we know the district was still active into the 70s. But you're not reflecting any assessments during the 70s. These aren't showing any assessments other than the $3,000 received. And that was all at one time.
Yeah, there were others, but they weren't $3,000. There were times when, July 30th of '72, there was $348 in the account.
Yeah, no, we're talking about receipts. I'm asking about receipts.
Is that,
I'm asking about receipts. You received $3,000 in May of 1973, right? That's the only receipt that's shown on this list.
right.
Are there other
And
records
that's
of
not a
receipts?
list, that's a report to the commissioners from the treasurer. So
Are
that's
the-
not,
Well,
to find out where that $3,000 were, I think what would have to be done would be to go back to the tax bills of the individuals who were being milled for the Upper Deep Creek Drainage Ditch and see what each one of them was charged that particular year.
but my question to you, Doug, is, are there other records of receipts by the county from the district, from assessments from the district, other than this $3,000? Do you have a record of any other money you got?
All I can say is that, on each individual tax bill, it shows what they were milled for.
So-
I can't tell you what they did with the money or where that 3,000 went to or where it came from.
And you can't tell whether any other money was collected, that's by the county, and that's the question I'm asking.
I don't see that any's been collected since '79.
Well, this $3,000 is the only recorded, apparently the only recorded receipt that was in May of '73. Or did that just appear out of thin air, or, it just seems a lot. There's no record of any, of a receipt.
Now, does the district have a board, or had a board back then? Do you guys have board records? Have you been through any of those from the '70s before?
We had, what we got is what we got from, the clerk court. And so that's where all this is such a gray area. We know that that was established at $600 a year, okay? And there was one clause in there where there was, I think, $340 some or something like that, that was there. Nobody knew where it was at or anything. And then when we had our hearing last October 23rd, we're sitting there, okay, as far as we know, the money was getting collected. But we know the ditch had went inactive, there was nothing, and that's what sort of, on where this stuff is getting paid out, there was nothing done on the ditch. Up until, when we had to resurrect this thing. And, but, we're just trying to figure out, first off, we're gonna have to have an updated assessment to start covering our costs now. But the judge ordered after, 1979 to forward, which that would come into, if it was $600 a year, a little over $21,000. That, we have no idea. As far as we know, a judge would have to rescind that order to, and we have no record of that. So that's saying that that money was getting collected and was such a insignificant amount, because there was 1,286 acres that was in the drain district. Whatever $600 was, breakdown on that, it was an insignificant amount. Where back then in 1950, did everything go into the general fund? We don't know. And that's what we're trying to figure out is because we're required to now to, the judge put a $12,000 a year operating maintenance budget, plus your weed control, all this insurance, that we have to find some way of financing this. And right now, are doing it through grants, and to clean this ditch and everything now, but that only goes so far. And that's probably twofold. We need to reestablish the assessment. WWC Engineering has established the original boundary, and just sort of going through, there's 41, 42 property owners right now that would be inside the district. Now, if you read the Montana Code Annotated, it states that any body, whether it's state, county, city, utilities, private individuals, commercial, that are affected by this drain district can be established. Now, the Montana Code Annotated was put in after this, way after this ditch was established. This is another gray area, we don't know where to go on this thing. And that's what we're trying to establish. If there is money that was, that had been collected, we would like it made available to us where, then at the same time, like talking with Doug, any money that comes in now, whether from the grants and everything, go into the line item for the Lower Deep Creek. And Doug has worked really well with us on putting that together. The thing is, in some respects, and don't take me wrong, but the disarray of the records downstairs, it's a nightmare to try to go through and figure out where everything's at. And the thing that John was sort of, he would find notes or a line item written in like say the county commissioner notes, but it was always, everything else was written in ink. These were always written in pencil. There's just a lot of questions. We don't know, like on some of these where paid $60, paid $90, paid $198. We don't have a clue who was getting paid because nothing was getting done. And then the one is this 3,000, receiving this 3,000, and then a couple months later, somebody comes in and takes basically 2,500 of it, where there's no record showing where any of this money ever went. So that's the whole thing, we don't know what's.
The district was either still active to some very minor degree during this period of time, up through July of 1978, when there were payments being made, or the money was going somewhere where it shouldn't go. We don't know.
Yeah, they may have been
Yeah, we have no
paying
idea.
some cost to wind up their affairs.
No idea.
So I guess the question is where to go from here.
Yeah.
You will need to, I mean, whatever the process is to reestablish that assessment, does it need to be voted on by the property owners or part of the, how does that work?
I think it just needs to be declared by the court. And that's, I mean, that's part of the issue here, is that the court determined an assessment back in about 1948 or so, and we can't find any record that that was ever changed or rescinded. So that may well still be in effect. Fact is, we can't figure that out one way or another, so
$600 was good in 48, it was fine now, right?
we're perfectly willing to go back to the court and ask for another assessment. Yeah, the $600 would be good if you want to make up the $600 a year for the last 60 years.
Go ahead.
May I ask a question? How do you know that that money was actually assessed?
We don't. Well, we know that the court ordered it be assessed,
Right,
but we don't know
but
whether it was ever
any
collected.
special district, my understanding is you have to ask the Department of Revenue each year to assess that. That's what the fire district has to do.
Yeah, but this is, the drainage district is a completely different kind of district that operates
But it-
on a court order.
I understand that, but if the Department of Revenue was not apprised of the fact that it was supposed to be levied, there's a real good chance it wasn't. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And the records for the county, the treasurers and the clerk and recorders have to balance. The money has to be accounted for in some point. And everything we could find, we couldn't find what it was spent for, but we could find any number of monthly ones where there was money there, and most of the time the balance was the same, but if money came in, it didn't show where it came from or where it went to, but there was expenditures or income. And there are several years of those down in the clerk and recorder's office, and a lot of years that we haven't found so far. We have been looking for them.
You know, I believe it.
Yeah.
I just think that the records back in the 50s and 60s were kept a lot differently than they are.
Right, and they're
now.
probably down there someplace, but have you
Yeah.
ever looked down there? Holy smokes.
Way around to. But I do think, Ann, that I think that the way this was established, in particularly because of the peculiarity of the statutes providing for, number one, the creation of a drainage district and the peculiar nature of the district itself, I don't think it goes through the Department of Revenue to determine the assessment. I think it's automatic if the court orders it, it has to be assessed.
But the Department of Revenue know that.
Well, it probably
I'm
not.
asking. I'm just
Probably
asking.
not, and that may well be the reason
Right.
this didn't happen, because of why it stopped. And of course,
So-
we've
so
had
you're
changes
talking
in that
the last,
relationship with
the
the
last two
Department
were put in there were Fred Foster and Gordon Hinch. Well, Fred's dead and Gordon hasn't lived here for 40 years.
You know,
But you know, you raised a good point. Would the state have records then that we could look to from the 70s?
Good luck.
Are they not likely to be anymore?
well,
When,
but they might.
well, they might, but I will tell you, when the assessor went from being county to state, they changed a lot.
Well, that's what I was thinking of, that because of that change, and when was that? That was back in the late 70s?
When was that? No, that was, I think, in the 90s when that happened.
Was it that much later?
Yeah.
Well, it seems to me, I think that the the question for you, first of all, is what level of assessment, the properties that are included, all that, and then is the process to go to the court and seek an order on that? Because the court set a $12,000 budget, was that based on, just a study of what work needed to be done on the ditch from last fall? Is that what that was?
That was the request that was made,
Okay,
based on an estimate
okay.
of what they thought it would cost to maintain.
Sure.
On an annual
I mean, it
basis.
seems to me that progress could be made on establishing the assessment while we're still digging for the answer on this other money.
And we can do that, we can go to the court and ask the court to order an assessment. And what we really were hoping for is that we could find
Right.
whether there's money already available
Right.
first,
Absolutely.
before we do that, because, you know, they've got a relationship with, well, these people are all members of the district. They're the people that are gonna be paying the bills.
I mean, Doug, how do we further unravel this mystery? What do you think?
You know, that's, when the Department of Revenue lost 2 employees there about a year ago, there were boxes of information that were cleared out of their office. That's where most of the assessment would have been kept.
Well, they don't throw anything away, that stuff's gotta be somewhere.
Oh.
Well,
Department of Revenue.
as far as claims, that works kind of like a checkbook.
Well, they
If you keep
remove
claims
it,
for
but
7
they
years and they're
shred it?
disposed of, otherwise we would,
I don't know the answer.
this courthouse would be full of nothing but paper.
Well, one,
So, the records that we were finding, most of them were records that would have normally been destroyed. Tax assessments and tax bills are kept normally for 30 years and then they're destroyed.
I know on, talking with Bob Fisher from the DNRC, and, yeah, that's who we work hand in hand with on this, on funding and everything. His statement was that if you think the county's records down in the basement are in a state of disarray, just like with Annie said, with the state, those, good luck on finding. Said when they started moving buildings, stuff got boxed up here, it could end up over in this basement here, it could end up over here. Nobody has a clue on where any of this stuff's at.
Right.
And that's the, sort of the dilemma that we've got right now is that, for operating money, for right now, we're working on our second grant, and then we've got another 223 grant that's in line, and we've already got awarded. That will take us to do the initial cleaning of this ditch. There's 5.5 miles of this ditch. And what we're running into is probably on an average 3 to 4 feet of silt that's built up over 60 years. In 2016, we're applying for what's called a Renewable Resource Grant, which is a $150,000 grant, to where we can go in and complete, because what we're finding right now is doing the dredging that we're doing right now, that we've got to come back once we get there and re-dredge it out again because of all the silt that's building up. And so, plus fencing, culverts, everything this and that we've got, that we're trying to do this without impacting any of the county residents and the landowners, because as the things, if your property touches this ditch, guess what? You're a member of the drainage district. And it comes in right on Harrison, just outside there, goes out to the mill, takes in Schritz's, goes out by the Baptist church, and curves around. It's right at the very edge of Townsend.
And along Jack Farm.
And along Jack Farm Road. Yep, and it's, because from doing off the old records, where, okay, if you take Bob's IGA, and go south, back when this was put in, you couldn't ride a saddle horse across that because it was involved. Mary Ellis Upton is the mayor. She was told from Clint Holland when she took over the mayor position was the biggest problem that they had was the water table on the south side of town. That's why this ditch was put in, that into drain, and it's worked. for that amount of time.
Well, I'm gonna have to interrupt. We're kinda getting off the subject a little bit.
Yeah, okay,
But it
but I was just giving.
The
Courtney
big
time.
thing is to try to find out these records, and if there's anything in assessments. I don't know, between Doug and Tom and Corey, what you suggested, just do some more digging or check with the state and
Well, I guess, I don't know, I mean, I'm not the expert on this. I think if there's another route to take with the state to see if they've got anything, and then I guess it's, you know, it's gonna be up to Tom if they wanna start pursuing the assessment. I understand what they're saying, what they don't want is the residents to have a huge, big outlay at first. They wanna find a source of funds to get it clean, and then the properties are only responsible for the yearly maintenance, basically, that's what you want, right? I mean, that's what I would want. So, I don't know, to you guys, do you wanna pursue moving on the assessment while we still digging on this back money? Cause it, I mean, the record's so thin right now that it's gonna be a tough deal to put that together. Is it, Tom, what do you think?
Well, it's up to these guys, it's their,
I would have to say that, you know, we got this, we went through the process of getting it, cause one thing about the drainage district, they don't go away, okay? So we're back in operation, through the judge's order and everything like that. We're gonna have to, because somewhere down the line, if the county does or doesn't, have any money, we've gotta come up with some of that money, and the only way you're gonna do it is through an assessment, and it's gotta be established. So I guess, yeah, we're gonna have to pursue that at the same time as looking back into, cause we can't figure out where this money was coming from other than assessments. Where it went, we have no idea where it went.
well, you can't figure out why the assessment would have stopped if it did. And that's theoretically, based on the original court order, it appears that the assessment, as minor as it was, $600 a year, shouldn't have ever ended. And I believe what Ann's saying about the Department of Revenue, but I'm not sure whether that would have applied to this, but I don't know if anybody would have known that.
I don't know either, and, I mean, who you got around, you could, I don't know whether Lady or John Schritz would remember anything ever having been assessed. I mean, there is nobody back any further than that.
No, you're right.
Well, it could be that, you know, it's a generation between when it started and when it ended. And so if people just said, well, we got notified the district's not active anymore, they may not have realized they had to have a court order and they just quit doing it. But on the other hand, maybe they kept getting $600 a year and they just stuck it somewhere without a record too, so.
I remember talking to Ray Wallace, and this has been in the late eighties sometime. He said that it was still showing on his tax records, I think, at that time.
So is it still showing on Linda's
Yeah.
records? Is
I-
it showing on yours? Is it showing on Bill?
It's not, I
yeah.
haven't seen anything, but I don't know how he didn't tell me, you know,
Oh,
what it
sure,
was. But we were just
sure.
talking about the
Yeah.
drain ditch and how it got built. And he said that it still showed on his records that they were paying a little bit then.
Mhm.
So,
That'd be helpful.
yeah, I don't
So
know if that's
everybody-
something where you could go back to like the Wallace records and look at them and see if there's an item on there or not.
Well, it would apply to all of you.
Yeah, it should have been, would have been on
Should've been on
Wallace and
yours, too.
Bruce and,
everybody was on.
kind of when we weren't in it at that time, it would have been Foster or Boer or somebody like that, Dawson originally.
Wasn't your place Reagan at the one time?
Well, that place isn't in the drainage
Oh.
district, it's out here on the.
Oh, it
Dawson
doesn't,
place.
is it affected on?
Yeah.
that end?
On the
Okay.
Jack Farm Road.
Okay.
Yeah, and we didn't acquire that until 2012 under our name, so.
I guess, moving on then, you guys, if you wanna start your other assessment or whatever, get started on that, and whatever you wanna try to dig up on this information, which sounds like it's pretty tough, but,
Well, does the county have records of the tax bills for the, how far back to your tax bill?
I don't know, Doug, how far back to the actual bill?
1900s.
So we ought to be able, and the bill itself would show what would show the fund, wouldn't it, that the money was going into? Or would-
if you took
Well,
one,
I'm looking at a tax bill right here that was 1970. And we picked up Mr. Stanley because we determined he was probably one of the earliest people on the ditch, and so his is this bill from '72. And I don't believe we found anything on his bill that said Lower Deep Creek drainage. Did you and I were down there looking at
Yeah,
this?
now would, that's just a question,
And I
Doug.
don't see anything on here that says Lower Deep Creek.
On that, if there was 1,286, well, I think it was 1,286 acres, I wouldn't quote me on that, I think that's what it was. Okay, back then, it was originally in the district, okay, and everything had to probably be done by acreage. So you take 1,286 into 600, okay, pretty insignificant amount. Would that have warranted even a line item? Or back then, that's where we're thinking, did that operate under a general fund? Because if that went into the general fund, it wouldn't show up in 1972, because that money would have still been going into the general fund. But I don't know how that
But if it's a special
would have
assessment
been.
bill, it would have to be separate, it would have to be separate.
Even on a
Yeah,
small
even
amount.
a small amount.
Yeah, see, that's the whole thing, we don't know,
Yeah.
we haven't seen any records from the 1950s. We don't know what, that's gonna tell us a lot, is to find the records of the original property owners.
What
To
if
see
you
what
took
that-
like the Ray Wallace, that's probably all that never changed hands other than from
From
father
Ray to
to
Linda, yeah.
daughter, yeah. And went through, say, that set of records.
Should be able to track it back, I would think. If you went back to 1950 and it was collected at that time, there should, if it was a line item, it should be on there. Because you know that it had to be collected in the early 50s, because part of the reason for collection was to pay back for the cost of building the ditch.
Can
In
you,
that
can
case,
you just do
probably
that for us then,
The
Doug?
easiest way would be to see if Wallace's still have records. Because
Yeah.
otherwise,
That's
you're
what it
digging
is.
through thousands
Well,
of pieces of paper
and did
for
you-
every single year.
Did you say, Doug, that after 30 years that the tax records are disposed of?
After 30 years, they can be, they weren't
Oh,
always.
they can be.
Can you assemble the Wallace records going back to, say, 1950 or 41?
You're talking
Um,
hours and hours of digging.
Yeah.
The question is just, can it be done?
It can probably be done, it's gonna take a lot of man hours and digging and.
Well, if one of the members of the district, you show them where those records are, can they, is that something they
I
can do?
can point them in the general direction.
Yeah, the
Some years, they're just in books, they're just in
Yeah.
books, and some years they put them alphabetically, and some they put them in the order that those people came in and paid.
Yeah.
I think as far as this
There
goes,
is no
this goes,
easy
you
way
guys
to do
just gonna have to
it.
get together on that. And
Yeah, we'll figure
We
it
gotta
out.
move on here, so.
Yeah, that would be the easiest way to start, and
Why,
then.
why don't we take some more time on this, and then we'll talk, and when we need to get back in front of you, we'll ask you to put on the
Okay.
agenda. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, that sounds good.
And just a question, if we were to get this set up again, then we need to come to, offer a budget? Is that how we have to do that then?
I don't know, I'll have to look at it.
Just,
Yeah, I don't think,
I would think you'd have to go back through district court again.
I don't think we come back to the commission, you go to the district court and get your budget approved.
Okay, and then.
And once if the district court authorizes the assessment, I think the commissioners have to, I don't even know if the commissioners have to take any action.
But
Probably
somebody
not,
has to know.
But I
that
guess I'm
Department of
saying is,
Revenue and
who
Treasury
do we
knows what
have
needs
to
be assessed.
notify for it to start drawing, just Doug?
Department of Revenue is the one that actually puts it on the tax bill. I'm not
We'll
even
figure that
sure
out.
who would be in the district anymore, that's
We'll-
probably
we'll
one of the
figure that
first
out.
things that would have to be figured out is how many properties you're.
Yeah. I've got one other, 1 minute. On the Broadwater County Kavanaugh settlement agreements, what's been going on over the last 3 or 4 years since we finally resolved that is that every time there's a sale of a lot by one of the people that was involved in the settlement, the county gets some money. But every time that happens, they need a lien release because we filed liens on the various lots. And so when it happens, I get a call, I prepare a lien release, I send it to the county for signature by the chairman of the commission. Whoever it is signs the lien release, they send it back to me, and I send it to the title company. Pain in the butt for everybody. So what I've done is this, I've got a notebook that I had formulated with all the settlement agreements in it, and it's got copies of the various lien releases that I've done to date. We just had one about a week ago,
Right.
or a couple weeks ago, which is what brought this to my mind. So what I've done is I've created a blank form, fill in the blank form, and what I would propose to do is to give this to Corey. There's no reason for me to be involved and have to bill you every time I do a lien release. And so what I propose to do is to hand this to Corey. That's your job from
Sounds
now
good.
on instead of
Fine with me.
And I don't have to
I'll do my best not to lose this.
The blank form is in the pocket in the front.
All right, thanks.
We'll come
Thanks
after
for all
you.
your work on that.
Come find me then, yeah, so the next time this needs to be, the one that just did you already do that release, or?
Yes.
It's been signed, it hasn't come back to me, maybe you sent it back directly to the
I
title company.
believe I did, yeah. Do you need a copy? I can certainly get it.
Although, my habit and practice always was, when I got them, is to put a copy in the notebook.
I'll make sure.
So make sure that you get Corey's copy, because there's already a copy recorded in. Good.
Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Thanks for your work too.
Yourself, a young high school student, almost get through about 10 feet of records.
Thanks, Tom.
See you
See you,
later.
Cory.
Good to see you.
Who is the guy on the far side? What was his name?
John Hahn.
John.
Chuck Hoffman. Chuck Hoffman.
Can I leave? Do I have to stay for the next one?
You're gonna be for the next one, we got just a real quick administration thing here to go over.
Mr. Commissioner,
It was,
Mr. Commissioner?
yes,
May I suggest that we postpone the 2:00 PM need for administration until the end of the meeting? You've got other people here that are waiting for their 2:15 appointment.
that's, would that work for you then, Corey? Oh, yeah, so you wouldn't be on that part.
Well,
Are you gonna be here for this,
yeah, I'm not sure why I'm scheduled on this next one. Limestone Hill,
we can move on that right now if we wanted to?
guess I'll stay and listen to it. I have a 2:30 thing that I have to go to, so I can stay for a few minutes. I'll sit here.
Okay, this is Sheriff County Attorney Tammy, Accounts Payable, Limestone Communication Site, BLM contract, bill and decision. This is, I don't know, Tammy, do you wanna start on it, or do you want?
No, I don't.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just up here just because you asked me to come up. I don't even know what you're,
Oh, okay, how it started, this bill come for this communication site, it come to Brenda, and she said it wasn't her bill. And so I went, Tammy didn't know anything about it, Debbie, nobody knew anything about it. So I called into the BLM, had them send out a copy of what it was. And it's, since then, it's been going back and forth. And it was due in the end of January. I guess Brenda, I'll let you go ahead and tell. The site, well, you explain how the site and how you first got involved.
BLM sent me a inventory request on the radio sites up on Limestones. So Gary from Capital Communication and I did the inventory on it. Oh goodness, sometime last year. And sent it back into the BLM so that we could keep our radio site. And sent it back in, well, they in return sent me this bill. But the bill is for the Montana Internet, which I don't have the contract with Montana Internet up there.
can I interact just one little bit? They have not got the inventory certifications since 2013.
I sent it into them.
I have everything here. When I called in, you had to give them permission to talk to me.
Yeah.
You gave me permission to talk to me and Franklin. We're the only two that can even and they said they haven't gotten any inventory certification since 2013. So they went on a site off of the 2013 inventory certifications, and then they went on site and did an on site, and that's how they came up with this bill. They've sent you numerous bills. We haven't paid for 2 years.
This was the first thing that I received from them.
One was due in December, and one was due in January.
Well,
And
this,
from what they've told me is they've sent you numerous bills.
no, this was the only one that I received from them.
Okay. Well, and I don't know that, that's just what they've told me.
Yeah, Gary and I we've done the inventory, the 2 inventories they sent me. The only ones that I've received, I've done.
So that's all I know.
But the bill, that was the first bill that I received.
Okay. Yeah, I can't argue with that. I'm just telling you what they told
And
me.
I called Ashley to find out what the heck it was for, and that's when I found out it was for Montana Internet.
But Montana Internet has never been charged before.
Well, I don't know.
They haven't.
Yeah, I don't know.
And your name is on the bill. They told me that you were solely responsible for it, is what they told
Well,
me.
I shouldn't be responsible for Montana Internet because I don't have a contract with them.
Can I interject some questions that I have?
You know.
This is, I asked you to come forward because I've got some concerns about the big picture of this whole thing. What we do have, we have no file in the commissioner's office for any of this. I don't know why. We've got a lot of files that ended up missing. This is apparently one of them. In 2008, the previous commission, chaired by Gail Venice at the time, wrote up a contract, or were signatories to a contract with BLM for the Limestone site. At that time, Montana Internet was exempt from any charges along with the TV district, Broadwater County Road Department, EMS, and the Sheriff's Office. This contract was signed by, again, the county commissioners. The name on the facility, the owner, the manager is Broadwater County Commissioners. And it states that the contract is good through 2027, if I'm not mistaken. There was a follow-up letter sent September 11th in 2008. And what it said, it kind of showed the requirements. In the fall every year, an inventory would be sent, and then full payment for that year would be due January 1st. And then it's just the contract, and you can certainly see that if you want. That came,
How much money per year?
no money, there were no charges.
We've been exempt
Yeah.
except for the last 2
I thought you
years.
just said payment January 1st.
Oh, I'm sorry, if there were a payment, it would be due January 1st, but as we were exempt, we just have to refill out an inventory that says exempt,
Okay.
and then there would be no bill.
Okay.
So, next bit of information we have is from 2013, November 19th, a communication site tenant customer inventory with the name of the facility owner and manager being the Broadwater County Commissioners at the top, was filled out and signed by Brenda Ludwig. And on that, it shows that Montana Internet is no longer exempt. It shows the road department, rural fire, and the sheriff's office, that's it. No TV tower at this time. Follow up on that, what we have are bills that started coming in that shows that there would be a charge of $2,383.32 to Montana Internet. None of this was ever brought to the commission or Montana Internet. Then we started this year getting bills, past due bills, billed for collection for 2014 and 15 for, again, Montana Internet. And this is when it started coming to our attention that something was going on,
Okay.
that the commission, and these are all sent to the county commission, was bypassing us and somehow going just to the sheriff, but there was no communication. So we've got bills now, bills for collection with late charges and about $2,400 that has been not paid. No communication with Montana Internet, no communication with the commissioners as far as why they were included on the bill. And then when this was brought forward by Tammy, I called BLM and said, so what's the story? And they said, we can't talk to you until the sheriff authorizes us to do so. I was dead in the water as far as getting any information. They did tell me that she'd given authorization solely to Tammy Rouser and Franklin Salifka. Tammy Rouser is not authorized by law to write any bills whatsoever. That comes from the county commissioners. The county commission is made up of 3. So what we had was pretty much a whole lot of, and email communications were not being answered by the one person authorized. I took a phone message downstairs that was sent to all 3 commissioners, meant for Franklin Salifka, looking for an answer on this bill. They were not getting any information, any returned calls. So I'm concerned that A, there's no record of what happened. How did this go from a county commission contract to solely a sheriff's issue? Where's the communication? Who's gonna talk to Montana Internet? How did they get wrapped up into a bill here? And why is it that BLM has excluded 2 commissioners from even being able to get any of this information? Everything I have comes from Tammy, because she is now privy to the information. So
All I did
those
was the
concerns.
inventory with Gary.
Say again?
All I did was an inventory sheet with Gary,
Who's Gary?
Capital Communications.
Oh, they're all good questions. Who knows the answers? I sure don't. I mean, it sounds like was the contract modified somewhere around 2013? Does anyone know?
I don't recall it ever being at a commission meeting to modify anything like that. I couldn't find anything in the minutes. Now, I didn't spend a lot of time, just a couple hours. But I didn't see anything on the agendas on this. And again, this is one of the files that's empty. I've looked in every single file cabinet we have. It's one of the files that's developed legs and walked out in the county.
And why would Montana Internet no longer be exempt? Does anyone know?
No.
Do you have any idea? Brenda?
No, all I did, like I said, all I did, was requested to do was do an inventory sheet for him.
So who's from BLM, who is contacting us?
We have emails from Ashley, and her phone number, that's a toll-free number that you can call, that anyone can call, whether or not they'll get anything back is the question, unless they're authorized, but her name's Ashley. I don't know her last name.
Well, yeah,
You can have
well, I had
her
actually,
on this too.
and I have talked to her. I called her because when nobody knew what was taking place, and I found that number. But it looks to me like maybe we're gonna have to get a hold of this Montana Internet.
Well, I think for any business in this county, if they are exempt and all of a sudden are being charged something, I think we have not only a responsibility, but an obligation to contact them and let them know. At this point, going back to 2013 and saying, hey, you owe some past bills and late fees, I don't think that's right. So we need to figure out what's going on so we can communicate with our partners and businesses, the very least.
Well, there must have been some other stuff comes some other time, I would think.
Well, so,
Go ahead.
what do you want me to do?
I guess
It's a list, I mean, it appears to be heading towards some kind of a civil lawsuit, so.
Yeah. Can you make contact there and then
I'd be happy,
and talk or check with this Montana Internet and see what,
I'll be happy to look into it and try and unravel this story.
that'd be great.
If
And I would-
there's any files in anybody's position that would help me understand this, I'd appreciate receiving them, then I can compile the history, that would be helpful.
I will get you copies of all these. I'd like to keep a copy,
That's fine.
especially the contract. I think that needs to.
I gave Corey, the other day I gave you everything I have.
Okay.
So everything that you have, Laura, I gave to Corey.
Okay.
Perfect.
So Corey has all that.
And you've got a couple of emails too, tracking the
Yeah.
steps, both from Tammy and I.
I'm not saying I don't have the emails, I'm just saying I haven't read them. But I will. All right.
And I would request too, from BLM, I think that conversation with Montana Internet should be one of construction, not, hey, you've got a back bill, you need to pay it. I'm not sure if that should be you, unless you want to take that up,
Yeah,
or
I'll-
maybe it should be the
I'll
commissioner
just,
sheriff.
I'll just start on it and tell them they're not gonna balance the federal budget on our backs.
You know, when I talked to BLM, the contract is with Broadwater County, not with Montana Internet. So we are fully 100% responsible for that bill. Montana Internet is not. Broadwater County is responsible. You know, we are allowing Montana Internet to use the site, but we've never, you know, they've never had to pay for it. They pay for the electricity up there, the Northwest Energy bill. So,
Okay.
but the contract with BLM is between Broadwater County and BLM, not Montana Internet.
And so the past due bill that they're referencing is for the year 2014. They're not trying to go claw back fees from previous years.
It's 2014 and 15
And
is
15.
due now. There's over $500 of late fee charges, and so the bill right now is over $5,000.
Okay. Okay.
I guess when you find out something, just, let know, we'll get back on the agenda with it then, and,
Well,
okay,
sounds good.
you better go.
Well, the sheriff needs to go too. It's all right.
Oh, okay,
Les, did you have more here?
no,
I'm gonna table the next one for next week, just the internet. Garrett,
We should be pretty close, your thing today should end up passing.
cool, okay, thanks Corey. Thank you, Tammy.
You're welcome.
okay, we can jump that up. This, need for administration,
Well, let's move on. I requested that that be at the end.
okay.
Are you at the end? To me, it looks like I
It's
still
just
need to
internet
talk
and email
about.
services.
I just mentioned, I would like to table that until next week. It has to do with both Brenda and Corey. What I would like on the agenda is, what you have at the 2:15, Brenda Ludwig, or Sheriff Brenda Ludwig / County Attorney Corey Swanson, and then internet and email services decision.
So you want that 215 one and this 231 on
No, Franklin,
another agenda?
what we're tabling till next week is internet and email services dash decision. Do you see that at 2:30?
Right.
In front of that, this week, should have been more information for the public. So next week, I'm asking you to correct that. In front of that, it needs to state Sheriff Brenda Ludwig and County Attorney Corey Swanson.
Plus internet and email services?
That's exactly right, yes. We're paying double for services, and I think that needs to stop.
I guess we could have that at 2:15.
No, we're just waiting for Franklin to write
Okay.
stuff in the calendar.
Sure, well, County Attorney Corey Swanson. Internet email services / decision. Okay, we'll go ahead with the code of conduct for county commission.
All right, on the 20th, that training we went to with the local government center, and Dan Clark, in it, he provided us with this sheet. And it's, what it is rules and procedures for governing water sewer districts. I emailed him and said, could you send me the same template for county commissioners? He did. Basically, what you do is you go through and you just put in Broadwater County and make it fit your county. So in your mail, you have the Broadwater County Public Process Policy. Little bit change of a name because it's no longer a water sewer district, it's for a county commission. Basically, it's the template from Dan, just to fit Broadwater County and in keeping with the template he provided and the open meeting policy. This is where the public hearing information was that we used earlier this morning that helped with the public hearing, and I would like to go ahead and adopt it.
This is what you're talking about?
It says Broadwater County Public Process Policy at the top, it's the very one. And you've had that now for almost 2 weeks from the training.
I've had that, but I haven't had any changes.
Right.
So I want to table that till the next available time. I'm gonna go through this here.
I would like that on the agenda for next week,
Let's see.
and I think it should be reworded to Broadwater County Public Process Policy.
Pretty well filled up, unless we have it at 1:15.
Based on the fact that you're looking on March 2nd,
Oh,
and today is March 2nd,
9th, okay.
how's the morning look? It looks like there's a really big gap there. Is the morning filled?
What's this, what's this old brown? At 11 o'clock. See, at 11 o'clock, because my conky's at 10:15.
Then I would suggest 11 o'clock.
Okay, so what are you calling it now?
It's right on the very top of it, Franklin. It says Public Process Policy for the agenda, but the actual title is Broadwater County Public Process Policy. And then dash decision.
Is it possible to get a copy?
Broadwater County Public Process Discussion / decision.
I would
11
suggest
o'clock.
2 things with that, Franklin. We pay by the word, so I would suggest taking out Broadwater County because obviously it's Broadwater County. And discussion, obviously is gonna be discussed because it's on the agenda. So if you cross those out, you save the county a little bit of money and that adds up.
Well, okay.
These are things you need to learn and be aware of and be conscious of out of respect for our taxpayers.
And what $2 we're talking about here is nothing like the thousands and thousands that you've wasted and spent. So don't be jumping on me about that.
Franklin, I am going to insist that you offer proof of your unfounded accusations. I require both that publicly and verbally from you.
Okay, we're moving on to the last need for administration. What is this? Do you have something to say?
Yes, that's me. Need for administration. I talked with Elaine last week and had her put it on the agenda. let's do a little history first. Last year about this time, during a very heated political campaign, I came to this commission with the idea of the commission hiring a chief administrative officer. At that time, the commission didn't feel they needed one. And it wasn't tabled, it just wasn't pursued after that. So what I'd like to do is talk some about what has happened since then and your need for a chief administrative officer. There's a packet for you, Commissioner Slivka. Would you put this packet in Commissioner Gravely's mail, or wherever it should appropriately go? And this packet is for Commissioner Colbert. Now, as a former auditor investigator, I started doing some research as far as this position, and have come up with some situations that clearly need a chief administrative officer. Pure and simple. So the need for administration. Let's start out with the horse rescue fund. Was you spent $127,471.44 so far. It's my contention that this money was just thrown at the problem. It wasn't managed. As a former auditor investigator, I'm really wondering about some of the ways that this money was handled. I've been told, I haven't verified this, I've been told that there were no contracts on this. From my investigation of this, it seems that it's been totally mismanaged. Next thing I'd like to talk about is the sheriff's lawsuit. That cost the county $17,936. And from what I can tell from it, from an outsider looking in, this came about through miscommunication. Pure and simple. Next thing I looked at was human resources. And this one really surprised me. Your contract for human resources, you spent $2,429.20 on human resources? This county has 75 employees with a $12 million budget. There's something wrong there. Either your human resources are being way underutilized and you can get yourself in trouble with compliance, with EEQ and everything else, or it tells me that the county's in very good shape. It's got a low turnover in employees and everything's been handled correctly. But yet you just dealt with a lawsuit from the sheriff where you had to pay out what? In back wages and stuff like that. Commissioner Slivka, do you know that amount?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit on that. That goes back with on this sheriff deal here. A decision was made in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And the deputies brought suit against it through the Teamsters, and they won. So that put that disparity in the wage with the sheriff and the deputies.
That's not true.
At that time,
was actually, it goes
at
back
that
2
time,
years.
the sheriff told us that there was a discrepancy in these wages, and nothing was done. It kept going on. And in compensation meeting last spring, on this, I said, the first thing we gotta do is take care of this discrepancy with the sheriff's wages. It fell on deaf ears. It went on. The sheriff was trying to get information. She couldn't get it. And she said she's gonna file suit. And she had to. And same thing on these horses. I'll throw that right in there real quick too. We have a county attorney now where things like this aren't gonna be happening. plain and simple.
Okay,
I would just like to make one comment.
sure.
Pretty much everything Franklin just said is twisted and untrue. That's all I'm gonna say. And the facts bear it out.
So so I guess, what else you want to say about the, as administrator here? What do you want for salary? What's those other things that we'll keep moving here?
Let's talk about today's meeting and the need for administration. 10:15 with Dana Rouser. He asked you about follow-up. And you are following up. But Dana brought this to the commission at least a month ago, if not 2 months ago. And then let's look at 10:30, open junk vehicle bids decision. The information wasn't here, so that was tabled. Public hearing on budget administrations. Problems with the reserves and the communication. And then 11:15, Mike Koenig. It was never announced to the public or people attending the meeting what was going on there. I'm having to kind of revise this presentation as time goes on. It's pretty obvious to almost everybody in this county that a county that has 75 employees with with $12 million budget doesn't have an administrator. You commissioners, comes from an experienced auditor investigator. You commissioners are leaving yourself wide open. 2 meetings ago, Laura presented the budget. She never should have presented the budget because she voted on the budget too. No commissioner should be presenting the budget. And Frank, for you, the chief administrative officer will be a huge advantage for you. Now, if I'm hired for this position, one of the first things I'm going to do is make sure all communication flows through the chief administrative officer. That's not a power grab. That's to organize the communication so that the problems you dealt with today never happen again. And in some ways, I disagree with Laura on some of the things, some of the duties of the chairman of the commission. I worked for Board of Realty Regulation. I worked for Board of Medical Examiners. I worked for Board of Dentists. I worked for Board of Accountants. I've sat through hundreds of board meetings. The chief administrative officer, to help you out, Franklin, should meet with you every Monday morning at 9 o'clock, go over the agenda, go over the mail, so that when you walk in, it's organized and the meeting flows. The meeting today has not flowed at all. And the chief administrative officer should also help the commissioners with the management of the meeting. If you refer to the Broadwater County, the PD here, Frank, let's go over the examples of duties that the chief administrative officer is going to do. You've got the right document in front of you. At the bottom there, it's 1, 2, and 3, the bullets. Let's look at these things. Directs the county management and administrative activities, coordinates department assignments and activities, leads development of short and long-range plans. You just got done with a hearing with the sheriff's department concerning that bill, and the county attorney volunteered to look into it. That's not the job of the county attorney. He's the county attorney. A chief administrative officer should be looking into that. An experienced auditor, chief administrative officer. Conducts research and studies, recommends practices, procedures, and organizational changes that will bring about greater efficiency in economy and county government. I think that pretty much speaks for itself. Conducts research, studies. Your chief administrative officer, again, should be doing the work that Corey just took on. 3, directs, supervises, advises, motivates, counsels, trains, and evaluates the work and performance of assigned department heads. Into this, I'd also like to throw some facts. Commissioner Olber, when was the last time the employee handbook was updated?
2010.
2010. Things just aren't getting done. Pure and simple.
I do have to say on that one though, is we have been in the process, we've done pieces of it, we've done individual policies. MACO's in the process of adopting a template for all counties to use.
Okay.
And when I spoke with Michelle, she said, hold off, don't do anything, just wait until that's done and then we'll wrap it all into one. So it has been something that I have looked into,
Mhm.
and it was at Michelle's guidance that nothing has been done.
Okay.
So,
But you're a commissioner. You shouldn't have to look into this. Again, Frank, $12 million budget with 75 employees, and you don't have a professional manager here? You don't have a professional manager helping you out, writing letters for you? You don't have a professional manager seeking?
I've asked for a secretary just as far as writing letters. The rest of this stuff, it'll flow.
It's not. You say it'll flow. How did it flow today in the
And-
meeting?
And when you get department heads that manage their part of it,
By the PD here, you're seeing that that's kind of a secondary thing, supervising the department heads. This whole chief administrative officer position is to help the commissioners, to be an asset to them, to keep them out of trouble. Pure and simple. Now,
that's why we have the county attorney. And then we can visit with him anytime, his door is always open.
true, and your chief administrative officer should be a partner with the county attorney. Yes, you have a county attorney. You have a good county attorney, thank goodness. His help is on the way. What I'm
Right.
saying here is in this position, if the commission should adopt it, it's my understanding that you'd have to put this out for applications, and then you do the process. So you're not necessarily talking about me. Sure, I'll be applying for it, but you're talking about what's good for the county here. Let's take a look at this sheet. Broadwater County Market Survey. I conducted a market survey last week. What I did the criteria I conducted this market survey on is I identified the two entities in this county that are closest to county government. And that's Broadwater County School District and Broadwater County Hospital. It's pretty black and white on this. Broadwater County School District has 123 employees with a budget of $6.3 million. They have an administrator. His salary is $84,766. Broadwater County Hospital with a budget of 5.5 million. Actually, it's 5.5 to 6, so I went with the lower one on this one. They have an administrator. He makes his salary range is $120,000 to $180,000. It's not public information. He did confide in me that he's on the lower end of that range. So I've listed it here as $120,000. Then we get to Broadwater County government. 75 employees. Let's all get our pencils out and change that figure from 10 million to 12 to 14 million. You have no administrator. In my proposal that I'm bringing before the commission is that you pay, that the administrator position is a .8 position. And that the pay for this position is $41,600. That works out to $25 an hour for the 32 hours. If you take this $120,000 that the hospital administrator is being paid, and if you put that at 0.8, times that times 0.8, you're at $100,000 in the market survey. If you take this $84,000 and multiply it by 0.8, you're probably at about about 62,000. So, Frank, I know how conservative you are, fiscally conservative. So am I. I've drawn this position up as a part-time position for $41,600. The administrator in Lewis and Clark County, if I'm remembering this correctly, and again, if I'm remembering this correctly, he's easily in the salary range of, he or she, of the $84,000 for the school district and the $120,000 for the hospital. What I'm here for is to offer my help at a very good price. So what I'm asking for the commission to do is consider the position of Chief Administrative Officer to serve the county, to serve the commissioners, and to protect the commissioners. What I'm asking is that it be put on the agenda for public conversation, for public input in the next meeting. And then in the meeting after that, well, and a decision made at that meeting to put the position out to be applied for. Now, you might be sitting there, Frank, you might be sitting there thinking, well, this guy's being really pushy. And you have every right to feel that. You do. But we just went over the agenda for this meeting today, and we reviewed all the problems. Things were postponed. We have to stop postponing and putting off things in this county. We have to start dealing with the problem. Now, when I was an underwriter with an insurance company, I was told that I was a paid decision maker. What I did is I took the information, came in, and made a decision. How much are we gonna charge this person for their ranch policy? You can relate to this, Franklin. You probably have a ranch policy. I'm the guy that, on the basis of the information I was given, would look it over and come up with the rates, decide whether we needed to write that risk or not, and made the decision. That's the major thing that this commission needs right now, I think, is we need to get going in a direction here. We can't continue to table stuff. So that's my proposal. I'm not making this on my behalf. I'll ignore that. I came in here to make this on my behalf, but I'm not making it on the behalf of myself now. I'm asking the commissioners to consider the position of Chief Administrative Officer and the need for it.
Okay, we'll take it under advisement to go from there. So,
Well,
thank you.
Is it going to be on the agenda next week?
Not next week, no.
Commissioner Obert, would you put it on the agenda next week?
I do think that, since this was put on by Elaine, and she isn't here today because she's ill, I think out of respect for Elaine, we should actually put it on next week so that she can hear this the same as you and I have.
If she listens to the tape, I guess. And hear the same thing, then we don't have to.
My request is out of respect for Commissioner Gravely, and I will
Right, that's what I
reiterate,
say, she could.
and I will reiterate my request. She asked that this, and wrote it into the book, that this item be on the agenda. She isn't able to be here today because she's ill. Out of respect for Commissioner Gravely, I would request that this item that she requested be put on next week's agenda so she can take part.
She can listen to the tape and know whatever took place. And
Are
then on
you,
down the line, we can put it on the agenda.
Commissioner Slivka, are you refusing to put it on the agenda?
Yeah, I don't see why we have to right now. This
So
is
you're-
this is a pretty big chunk of money in a position.
Commissioner Slivka, that chunk of money, that 41.6, is 1.1% of the money you spend every 2 weeks on salaries. 1.1%. That's not a huge amount of money. That's a bargain. I'm formally asking that you put it on the agenda.
Maybe at a later time with public comment, but at this point,
I am
No.
formally asking that you put it on the agenda.
I just formally told you what I was gonna do.
Commissioner Olbert?
I think that the minutes should certainly reflect Commissioner Salifka's lack of respect for transparency, lack of putting a request by a citizen and a fellow commissioner on the agenda for the public to hear, to see, to know that he is even reflecting on. This certainly goes to transparency, and the citizens of this county need to be aware that these actions demonstrate his respect for transparency in the citizens of Broadwater County, more so than anything else.
I've always been strong in transparency, very strong.
Commissioner Slivka? Are you refusing to put this on the agenda?
At this point, yes.
Okay, I will bring it up during public comment at the beginning of the next meeting, and you can explain to everybody in this room why you're practicing exactly the same thing that needs to be fixed. Let's delay it. Let's delay, let's delay, let's delay. Let's spend a whole bunch more money on this. Let's delay, let's spend more money. Commissioner Slivka, I voted for you. As a citizen, I can hold you accountable, and I'm holding you accountable. Look at me. Do you understand?
You can say whatever you want.
Okay.
The agenda is not for just those items we agree with. Any one of us can have any decision or any idea on any agenda item. The agenda is for public discourse.
I didn't say it'd never be on there, I said it's not gonna be on right now.
And I'm saying this is the same old thing. Let's delay this, let's spend more money, let's mismanage things. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you. Okay. This meeting will now be adjourned.
One thing before you do that, the flood coverage. Did you follow up on that?
Oh, I talked with Sean, and the only thing that would be down there, he said the county shop wouldn't be in it, would be the transfer station. And he said something to think about if we wanted to do something with that.
Will he follow up with Julie, or will you?
Oh, I can.
This is the Mako flood insurance, is this what you talked to him about?
Right.
Okay, we'll follow up with Julie, and we'll make a note.
Commissioner Slivka, if you have a chief administrative officer, that person would be doing that.
I've asked for a secretary for the commissioners.
Well, what you're getting then is a secretary on steroids.
Is this the Julie with Mako, or Julie with Centennial?
For our insurance, yes,
Centennial.
yes. The other question before you adjourn the meeting